Hey, I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. We're glad you're here. Subscribe to it. Give this video a like.
Also got a podcast down below in the description. I need you to go subscribe to that as well.
All right, how about this? Michael Lombardi on with Rich Eisen. Speaking matter-of-factly, you heard it, I heard it. You can go find it. Was not being overly dramatic, I didn't think. Wasn't being hot-takey. Said of Deshaun Watson, he doesn't want to play for the Jets. He doesn't want to play for the Dolphins. He wants to go to San Francisco or Denver.
You know, Rocky Mountain High, Colorado. I think San Francisco is much more equipped, especially when you factor in their coach, new GM in Denver. Could get weird. But it also gets down to who's going to trade the most. Also, it takes two to tango. You know, Deshaun has wanted out, it feels like, since the second round of the playoffs. I mean, it feels like we've known about it for a long time. He is not in control of that, despite being able to control where he goes because he has no trade clause. Is Preacher Easterby and Nick Caserio ever going to do anything? That, to me, is the question mark. I think they are great wild cards. I think he's going to get traded at the draft, but I wouldn't put like $1,000 on it. Would you agree with that? Like they are, we don't have any, because whenever we talk, Easterby is an ultimate wild card. No one knows anything about that guy. But I'd even say Caserio, because a lot of people do when they talk about moves, they go, well, in New England. Well, in New England, you mean when Bill Belichick did it? Like, I don't know what Caserio was doing. Maybe he was recommending half the things they did to do the opposite. I think it's easy to go, well, in New England, obviously I'm sure when you spend 20 years around Belichick, and there are so many pictures, especially over the last decade, of that chiseled jaw next to Bill. I'm not acting like he just fell into this job. It was clear he was Bill's right-hand guy and spent a lot of time. But just because you're someone's right-hand guy doesn't mean you're on the same page with philosophical stuff on everything, and definitely on certain moves, right? I think it would be dumb to assume what Caserio's going to do just because, like, this is what Belichick would do, right? Because Caserio's in charge of this, whether Deshaun gets traded or not.
I mean, but then you've got the Easterby factor. Like, Deshaun's made the organization look bad. So as they say, we're going to wait it out. We're going to convince him that that we want him to stay. The other thing we don't know is if Deshaun decides he's not showing up, and Caserio says, "We've had enough. What are we wasting time for? We could get a bunch of stuff from somebody. Let's do it." Does he have the authority to do that, or does Easterby say, "You know what? But no. I want to make this guy suffer. He has embarrassed us. We'll let him sit out. He'll just be on our team again next year, and he'll have another year on our team next year. Let's play chicken with this guy." I've watched a lot of Easterby videos, John, so I know what he says.
They're a hard watch, guy.
They're actually super uncomfortable.
I get very, very uncomfortable watching him. His outfits are always pretty weird.
Super weird, and like probably way more expensive than you think they should be.
I would imagine so too.
But I mean, I'm making a bad joke. But I think we don't know, like, from an emotion standpoint, are they going to get in a situation where they're playing chicken with Deshaun because egos are big, or is Caserio going to be cold-blooded about it and go, no, I don't think he's showing up. Let's move on. That's what we don't know. It's one thing to hold out in March. It's another thing to do it when the season starts. I got to tell you, now this is what Deshaun's angle would be. He would want me, if I were the Texans, to feel this way. But me, sitting here, I'm pretty confident Deshaun's not showing up.
I am too.
Like, I think he's serious.
Well, I'm not saying that it makes zero sense to keep him. Or maybe I'm wording that wrong. It would make zero sense to not trade him before the draft. Like, that's what they should do. I am just factoring in that I don't know what these guys – they have no history. You know, I mean, Caserio technically does, but unless you work for the Patriots, you don't know really what he thinks. Like, you watch some of his moves, like they signed Mark Ingram, they signed Tyrod Taylor. They did – that could, you know, check a box. They did just sign a contingency plan. They can at least get him through a season, right?
I guess. Yeah.
You would not sign Tyrod Taylor. Even if it was $12 million and it's actually $6 million. If you're starting quarterback, now this year Deshaun only makes $10 million. But with Deshaun your starting quarterback, you would not sign an expensive backup quarterback. It wouldn't make if he was coming.
So you're right. Let me rephrase, I guess, to that feels like the contingency plan is if Deshaun doesn't show up, not for when we trade Deshaun.
Yeah, I'm not saying they would try to win with Tyrod Taylor. They just realized we don't exactly know how this thing's going to play out. We have a chance to get a veteran quarterback that can start games. Just get him now and then figure it out as the dust settles, as we plow through this thing. It is hard for Deshaun to make a stink right now, right? What can he do? There's
nothing tangible to not show up.
Typically the first phase of the workouts start within the next couple weeks. Now, I think it's still up in the air if the NFL is just going to kick that off. Last year, they canceled it all. I do imagine there are going to be some sort of workouts at team facilities, but I do wonder if teams want to pay for all the testing right now, or they just keep working out on your own and we'll figure it out maybe in a month or two. But if that was the case, it would be he wouldn't show up to that, and that would immediately be a story, right? So to me, if there's nothing to not show up to, I don't know what else he can do at this moment to prove his point and force his way to San Francisco. Because I think back to the Niners, clearly if he was available for trade and they said, we'll trade him to you, they would give whatever they needed to give. But I just don't know if it's possible. You can't buy someone's home if they won't sell it to you. I mean, the Niners want him. Of fucking course they do. But if they won't trade him to him, I don't really know how this story goes. At least with the Russell Wilson story, he gave his teams. The Bears went at him. It was we were could the Raiders still be a sleeper? We know the Cowboys are out, and we know the Saints just can't get them. With this, it's well, if they're not picking up the calls or they're not willing to even discuss, what can you do if you're the Niners? You just keep staying in position. But
this is where, just listening to you talk, this is where you potentially gain leverage if you're the Texans, if you're dead set on keeping them around.
You just stay quiet?
Well, if the Niners end up drafting Trey Lance or Justin Fields, that hurts Deshaun's leverage. That's, it's is this Deshaun's way? Is this story, does Deshaun want this out there as a signal to the Niners not to do something that would prevent them from being a destination? When the Dolphins say we're set with Tua, although I guess they would change it, but when the Jets draft Zach Wilson and the Niners draft Justin Fields, that hurt.
You saying they trade up to get him?
Yeah, I'm just saying,
if they trade up to get him, Deshaun Watson, as crazy as it sounds, is probably off the table.
He is off the table if they trade up to get Justin Fields, unless trade a Justin Fields, unless the Texans want to do a Justin Fields for Deshaun Watson trade.
Yeah, but
the Niners wouldn't have the picks left to do it because they traded up.
Wouldn't you just take your chances with this cheap quarterback that you clearly liked a lot to trade up for?
Yes, I'm just saying it's in Deshaun's interest for the Niners to know that he wants to go there before they get another quarterback that would then make them not an option for him.
I agree there. The problem is, how do you force the people in charge of the Texans to act? Because if they don't want to act, they know all this. They know everything. They know all the scenarios. For as much as we make fun of Bald Easterby and Jawline Caserio, they do understand the situation. I just don't know if they're dead set on not trading him, or at least just making it ugly. The Niners, this is where I think you just kind of got to operate. And you just keep your options open as long as you can, but you have to have contingency plans to go the other way, right? Because right now they don't have to do anything. But once you get to the draft, and I had heard rumors maybe they trade up before the draft, and that's just kind of speculation. Who knows? If they were to do that, meaning if you get to 12-3, you don't have the ammo anymore to trade for Deshaun Watson before you even draft a player.
Right.
So there are, and even if you trade up, let's say you trade up that week of the draft, you get to 3. Once you know all the dust settled, you know exactly who's what and what players there and your cap situation, and then it's hey, we'll trade you Deshaun Watson. You're well, fuck, we traded pick 12 and next year's 1 and a 3. This is all we got. It just complicates the situation. This is why I've said from the jump, and anyone with a brain, it would behoove the Texans, if you know this guy's never showing up for you, to do the deal. You don't have to do the deal right now, but I would say over the next month, right? To start having dialogue.
I don't know what
I think. Does it inevitably end up that way?
Which way?
That we just get reports over the next couple weeks that they're going to have conversations with people.
I think they're crazy not to do it before the draft. You and I have talked about this. The money you save, the whatever. I think it'd be nuts. But they might believe that they can convince him to stay. And if they believe that, then I would say I think you might be wrong. I think he's not going to show up. But they do have a lot of leverage. And if they believe they can get him to stay, then I can't tell them, well, you shouldn't believe that, because they're the ones trying to talk to him and his agent. Now, even David Culley was like, oh, he's our quarterback for now. I think he's traded at some point because I think he's dead set on it.
To me, it's pretty simple. If the Niners are to trade for Deshaun Watson, I mean, it's arguably one of the biggest transactions in their franchise history.
In NFL history. We talked about it with Russell Wilson the other day. These guys don't get traded. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, they don't get traded. So,
and unlike Russell, he's way younger, right?
Percentage you think? Do you think Deshaun Watson ultimately is a quarterback of another team? Percentage you think he is?
I mean, I would say like 80. He's on another team.
What
if I wanted to go devil's advocate? He's torn his ACL twice.
You could go devil's advocate because the price is going to be really high.
He has multiple ACL tears. I think early on in college, and then obviously in the NFL.
Yeah, it's not nothing. It's not nothing. But again, maybe I'm a bad negotiator from the team perspective. I'm buying his bluff right now. I don't know if it's a bluff, but I'm buying he's not.
I'm with you.